1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Why, hello there. Good heavens. It's July. Monday. It's the second of the 7th month of the year 2012. And there's nary a cloud in the sky. And the heat wave continues. But, you know, all you have to do is look around at a weather map of the country to cease and desist from any complaining we're doing around here. People just a state or two south of us would kill for this cool weather that we are having. And as you know, some of those people are without electricity for the, second day since Friday night. Wow. Can't even imagine what it would be like to be without any ability to cool yourself with temperatures in the triple digits. Ugh. So, again, I know that the Republicans are still quite sure that there is no such thing as global warming, but sorry, guys. The sea levels are rising. Apparently, I read over the weekend that the sea levels on the eastern coast have risen much faster than any of the predictions. As much as 2 inches higher. And that sounds like nothing, but 2 inches means is actually a huge increase in many ways. Creates chronic flooding. Beaches on the eastern seaboard, as we know them, will cease to exist relatively soon. Beaches as we know them, by the way, are even now man-made to a large extent. We don't pay attention to that stuff, but so many of the beaches on the East Coast have been washed away year after year after year, and the powers that be truck in sand and put it down because it's the lifeblood of their tourism industry. As a matter of fact, there was a really eye-opening piece on beaches in America, how we relate to them, in, I believe, Saturday's New York Times. It tells us something that I sure as heck didn't know, perhaps you did, that the way we think of the beach as something that you are drawn to, that you sit on, that is something desirable to stare out at the ocean, is a really, in the looking at the full scope of human history, is a very relatively recent notion. And that in America, in the 18th and 19th centuries, well into the 19th centuries, the beach was considered first of all, in a rather negative light in many ways. It wasn't something that somebody was drawn to. Boardwalks, for instance, were built to obscure the beach so that people did not have to walk on it, so that they would be removed from the litter of it, from the sort of the smell of it. It was considered a negative. So that's where boardwalks actually came from, to get off the beach. People who made their living at sea never wanted to end up on a beach. To end up on a beach was to be obviously in some difficulty. So the beach itself was looked at. It constituted a threat. It was a place you didn't want to end up. It is where wrecks occurred, where you saw hulking, crumbled wrecks, where people had died, where the stench of death was always wafting up from beached whales and things like that. I kid you not. In fact, when people built their houses near the beach, they often turned their backs to the beach so that the house really faced away. They didn't want to look at that. And this is, as I said, relatively recently. There was even a saying in Canada for anybody who, for some reason, liked to walk on the sand and go down to the beach. They said they were said to be chasing the shore, which was sort of a way of saying, a little bit soft in the head or a little loony. Oh, you know him. He's probably off chasing the shore. Drawn to the beach. So this idea that we have of the beach as a place to go, totally the opposite, to turn our backs on our regular lives on the mainland, is really relatively recent and began pretty much, according to this guy who is a professor at Rutgers and has written a book about sea coasts, until the 20th century. And that it wasn't until the 20th century, when we were born, that beaches became, I guess, fashionable and destinations. And a place to put the world, as I said, behind you. To see a beach as a sanctuary, to see as a beach where, I don't know, where you almost make a pilgrimage, where you can sit and stare out at the vastness of the ocean and be revitalized. But the guy who wrote this piece says, but here's the fact, guys. While we're flocking to the beaches and using them as we do, we are failing to note certain things. And, like when the rug's going to be pulled out from under our feet, I got news for you. The beaches are going to be pulled out from under our feet. And for anyone who has been regularly visiting the eastern seaboard, you already know that. The writing ain't on the wall, it's under your feet. So that this professor, his name is John Gillis, says that the reality is that beaches have become, in America, some of our most artificial environments. They ain't what they seem to be. As I said, they're often man-made now. They are also, without a doubt, some of the most vulnerable real estate in our country. And those two things go together. Because they're vulnerable, because they are being eroded away, because of the rise of sea level, the result is that trying to hang on, trying to fight the inevitable, and there is something ridiculously Sisyphean about it, not to mention delusional. I mean, the amount of money spent trucking sand in and throwing it down, so that those who come to the beach to relax and rejuvenate, can continue to do that, not realizing that this is a false environment in large part now. And so these beaches that we think of as natural wonders are often essentially manufactured, constructed by the tourism industry, maintained at the cost of, God knows, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. The professor writes, a natural beach, which there still are some of, and I'm sure many of you have been on one. A natural beach is one where sand stops for a moment to rest before moving on. Isn't that wonderful? It's so poetic. Yeah, I know. That's what the guy writes, and he's actually right. That's a natural beach. Natural beaches are where sand stops for a moment to rest before moving on. Meanwhile, our phony beaches, which have to continually be resuscitated, they can't last either. And here is his last line. I just think it's a wonderful, sort of like a wake up. I'm sorry if you find this depressing, but it's, hey, death no longer haunts the shore in the form of broken ships and rotting whales, for it is the beach itself that could be dying. Well, no, and it puts me in mind of the funny story I told you last week about the Virginia state legislature, Republican-controlled Virginia state legislature, acknowledging that their coastline was in some jeopardy and had been dealing with a lot more flooding than usual because, well, they had to acknowledge that the sea level had risen substantially and that this was the culprit. However, the Republican-controlled legislature in Virginia said that while we better study this and see what we can do about it, any report coming out of this cannot use the term sea level rise because it's left-wing propaganda. Dear Lord. Gigi writes, thanks for the mobile app. I love being able to listen to you live without being tied to my computer. I know I'm not alone. Please pass on my gratitude to whoever's responsible. So we'll do that. I'll forward this, okay? I'll forward this to the proper people. Yeah, it's wonderful. And I've been showing it to, so right on my little smarty phone, I show it to everybody. Look, bang, bang, there's the show. There is the show whenever you want it, it is fantastic. You sick of this healthcare stuff? I am. But we better, I don't know, hunker down for what's going to be an extraordinarily ugly misinformation campaign, and let us hope that this time the White House gets it right on how to counter it. And God bless the fact that Mitt Romney is the Republican nominee, because given the fact that the Republicans are trying to make health care this sort of, they've been pulled away from the jobs thing to now make health care their, rescind health care, repeal health care. And just as our own Ricky Santorum warned the Republicans when in the primary fight, he's the worst. Speaking of Romney, he is the worst person you could have leading our ticket when health care, Obamacare, could be like the major issue. How can you have him, the godfather of it, as our head? So there's something wonderful about that. And this, obviously, they figured out that what they're going to do is say, it's a tax, it's a tax, it's a tax. The Supreme Court says it's a tax. Okay, let's even say it's a tax. Have you seen the number crunchings by even nonpartisan folks like there's something called the Urban Institute Nonpartisan Research Center that focuses on economic and social policy? They crunched the numbers. They said if Obamacare had been fully implemented, let's take just last year, for instance, 93% of the population under 65, in other words, without Medicare, would not have faced a penalty or had to buy insurance under the mandate. In fact, only 6% of Americans would have to newly purchase insurance. And the vast majority of those would be eligible for subsidies from the government to help pay because they don't want to make it into a financial burden for people who can little afford it. This is where those exchanges come in, and people will be able to buy insurance from those. They figure at most a little under 2% or a little over 1% of all Americans might end up paying a penalty or a tax, if you will, whatever you want to call it. Less than 2%. So let's put it this way. If 98% of Americans ain't going to be touched by this except in a positive way, how is that a winning? I mean, if you figure out how is that something that the Republicans? I mean, obviously, I know what they're going to do with it. They're gonna lie. They're going to do what they do so well, which is try to scare the bejeebers out of everybody. But it ain't that difficult now, as it starts to. It does start to clarify this thing that seems so complicated now. Now we start seeing how the bill works. A state like Pennsylvania, that was one of the states with a Republican governor and a Republican-controlled legislature, which, of course, went to the court and was one of the states arguing that this was unconstitutional and is now on the losing end of this. You can bet that Pennsylvania will comply with the law, will accept the unbelievably generous federal dollars so that millions of people who are now uninsured will be able to be insured. This is the enlargement of Medicaid, funded by the feds. For a governor of a state, and Jindal in Louisiana has already said he won't do it, to say, I refuse to accept that federal money to insure these poor people in my state, is mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. It ain't costing him anything. It's costing these poor people who will continue to live with the insecurity, the fear that is living with no insurance. It's beyond belief that even these idiot Republican governors won't accept the law. So all of that's going to play out, and anyway, I don't want to talk about it anymore. So there you have it. I saw a thing. You know how I hate the noise of landscaping? I hate it. I mean, I'm actually, noise in general bothers me. I'm a very sensitive person. Like today on the bus, could not believe it. I'm sitting sort of middle of one of those big, long, stretchy buses. Sort of in the middle. Behind me, and I never turned around to look, because I knew it'd be a scary-looking person. I just knew it would be because anybody who would do this loudly would have to be a jerk. There was somebody in the back who was chewing gum so loudly and cracking it. Every single crack, and that crack would reverberate loudly as far as halfway through the bus, and there was no reason why the people 3-4 rows ahead of me weren't hearing it. Literally, you gotta be a jerk. Now, I have to tell you, I like to crack gum. I do it in the privacy of my car. That's where I do it. I have a little bunch of gum in there, right in the thing, and I stick one in and I chew away and I crack, because it's fun. There's something wonderfully, I don't know, there's something, I just love it. I'm addicted to it. I would never do it around anybody else. But that's not what I was talking about. So I hate lawnmowers. I hate the ones that make noise. Those blowers are the worst. I refuse to use them. You know what I use? I use a push mower and I use a rake. For most of human history. Well, that's not true of the mower. But for most of human history, certainly a rake-like device was used. And you know what? It works well. And you know what else? You get exercise doing it. And you know what else? You don't pollute. Those blowers are worse polluters than buses. They're worse polluters, and apparently they spew more crap into the air than you can imagine. And they're noise polluters. They're awful in every single way. So, I rake, and I have a push mower. And granted, I don't have a large lawn. But I just saw, guess what's coming back? And this might make my push mower obsolete. Because this goes back before, what did they use before they had push mowers? What did people use to cut grass?
Cows.
What'd you say, cows? No. Well, goats, cows, yeah, yeah, you could do that. But let's say you manually wanted to keep the grass down. You used a scythe. Do you know what that is?
No.
Well, think of the Grim Reaper. Think of that death figure.
Mm-hmm.
What's he carrying?
Oh.
Do you know what that is? That's a scythe.
You just whack it.
It's a tool. Yeah, it's got a long handle, and then it's got this curved, long blade. And that's how people would clear. Yeah. It's also like the old commie hammer and sickle. A sickle's like a scythe. Maybe it is a scythe. I don't know. Is a sickle a scythe? Anyway, I'm telling you that scythes are coming back. There are people who actually use them, apparently, and if you ever get one, and they're hard to find, if you ever get one, you got to take lessons because it's really, really hard. There were only 10,000 scythes sold in the United States 10 years ago. You know how many were sold this year? Or last year? I don't know. Oh, no, I had that wrong. There were only a few dozen sold 10 years ago. You know how many were sold last year? That is correct. 10,000. It's not huge, but definitely that's a big percentage increase. I mean, that's so people. And as I was reading this article, I thought, oh God, I got to get a scythe, because I mean, think of that's some good exercise, and they were showing how to do it. It's mostly hip action. If you're doing it right, you're not using a lot of upper body, even though that's what's holding the scythe. But they say to be careful. You can take your toes off in a second. So I guess the biggest scythe manufacturer is in Germany or something. And anyway, so I'm thinking of it. Here it is. Here's the German guy. Schrokenfuchs. The Schrokenfuchs factory. That's the biggie. They've been making scythes since 1540. Yep. Now, if you had an original Schrokenfuchs, you would be Schrokenfuchs. Sorry, it's F-U-X at the end. Nothing I can do about it. Schrokenfuchs, you would be, boy, that'd be worth a lot. There are no more scythe factories. Oh, that's in Austria. There are no more in Germany. There are no more in France. The biggest buyer of Schrokenfuchses now is Iran. Oh, God. I don't know why. 60,000 Schrokenfuchses have gone off to Iran recently. So there you have it. I don't think I have anyway. They say you lead with the shoulders, don't work the arms. It's not a slap shot. It's not a hockey stick. The blade stays on the ground. You have to learn. But so anyway, I just want to. Will someone tell my neighbors if they see me out in the front yard, with this huge, frightening-looking thing? I'd be afraid to even have it in the garage. I mean, because somebody could fall on it and decapitate themselves or something. But there it is. They say some suburbanites are actually going for the scythe. Hey, Jess, look up if scythe is synonymous with sickle. And I think, and also, let's take a break. Do 20 things at once, will you, Jess? We have to, okay. Let me get a break in here, and then we'll be right back.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
You in the City and Hosanna House Summer Nights present Jazz Under the Stars, starring Najee, Friday, July 13th. 8 p.m. at the Sherwood Events Center in Wilkinsburg. Tickets available at Dorsey's, Stediford's, or charge by phone at 1-800-383-5760. Najee, live in concert July 13th. Proceeds benefit Hosanna House, a place called Hope.
Berg City Paper is seeking 10 local artists who design their own street box for a public art project to be featured throughout the city of Pittsburgh. Go to pghcitypaper.com and click on the Art Box link for more details. The Pittsburgh City Paper Art Box Project, brought to you by McDonald's.
It takes 12 years to create a graduate. It takes about the same time to create a dropout. And at the end of the day, the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be you. So United Way is asking you to make a pledge. Tutor a child who needs help. Mentor a kid who needs someone on their side. Volunteer to read to children. Because when a child advances, we all advance. Be a reader, tutor or mentor. Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Take the pledge now at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
Jess reports that apparently it is not an easy thing to explain the difference between a scythe and a sickle. Well, yeah, it's like 6 paragraphs, she said. Leave me alone. Okay, that's it. Forget about it. Doesn't matter, I guess. Wow, Ed just sent me a picture from Nantucket of somebody's house in a precarious situation. He says, check out this backyard shot of someone's fancy house on Nantucket. Well, those houses that are on the ocean there, there's that, right. Anyway, the people, in a second I'll tell you about a not fancy house on Nantucket that I know about. The people who own houses along this road have been trying for 35 years to keep their houses from falling into the Atlantic. Recently, the neighborhood, get this, proposed spending $25 million of their own money. Because if you got a house like that, they probably can go door to door and round up $25 million to bring in sand from one of the best fishing grounds nearby to shore up their cliff, their whatever they got for it. The town did turn down the proposal because it would ruin the fishing grounds. Anyway, many houses, he says, along this road have been moved inland several times over the years. They keep pulling the houses back, and the ocean just keeps coming. Some have been moved across the road, but the rising tides and storms have continued to erode the shore. Yeah, there's no winning this one. There's no winning this one. He points out, guess not, there won't be too many yard games or cookouts this summer. Our own dear Mr. Rogers had a home, summer home, on Nantucket on the ocean. His son now owns that property. It was called the Crooked House because it was. It was unlike these fancy schmancy places. It was just this one story. You know, it looked like what you used to think of as a cottage, you know, when you would say, we're going to the cottage. You know, a place not fancy at all, just sort of, but a place away. And that's what Mr. Rogers' place looked like. And it was decorated in Salvation Army chic. Seriously, there was nothing fancy about it. But it was there wasn't anything between it and the Atlantic Ocean. I guess that's still true. And the Rogers had that property and have had it for, God, I don't know, maybe over 50, 55, 60 years. So before Nantucket got fancy schmancy. For years, the ocean has they've watched that ocean come at them. And now the well water that generations of Rogers drank from at the Crooked House, you can't use it because it's salt water now. So, they understand the inevitability of it. They're not going to keep pulling back and pulling. At some point, you tip your hat to Mother Nature. You get some humility, I think. Don't you? I think if you're smart. Okay, so I used to think, who do you think of all the presidents in the world that you know of, who's the better looking president? I think Obama's right up there, don't you? Can you think of a better looking president than we have? Well, there is one now. I'm afraid Obama's been, if you thought it was Obama, he ain't anymore. Because Mexico just elected a new president who's like movie star.
That's right.
Movie star. Handsome. Although his hair creeps me out. It's sort of Vaselined back and stuff. Movie star. Handsome. So handsome. He's one of those men who's so handsome you can't look him in the eye. At least I can't. Anybody who's that good looking I can't look at. I always think I'm going to turn to stone or something. So, yeah, he's good looking, that guy. Enrique Peña Nieto. Woo-wee! Okay. Okay, so you've seen the letter from the CEO and founder of Starbucks? He took out full page ad. It's not an ad as much as it's a letter. This one I pulled from Sunday's New York Times. I can't even begin to imagine what that's a lot of lattes, but yeah. And I saw one today in USA Today. So he's placing them in national reach newspapers. And his name is Howard Schultz. I got a feeling if anybody bothers to read this, this is going to this is the guy who's got when an independent voter, read him this letter. Because it pulls you away so beautifully from the talking points of especially the Republicans. I mean, he's trying to be, neutral, but even when you're being neutral, you have to. Let me read some of it to you. I'm not going to read the whole thing. He's wishing everybody a happy 4th and talking about celebrating America and talking about the American dream and saying that he's a product of it. He grew up in a public housing project. He went on to get an education at a state university. He's very clear to say. He built his business, blah, 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 and clearly extremely successful. Here's what he then says. Across the country, millions of Americans are out of work. Many more are working tirelessly, yet still unable to adequately care for their families. There, he's putting the lie to the Republican, right there. I mean, that's a true statement. And he's putting the lie to the Republican crap that they're always peddling, that if you can't provide for your families, you're lazy or something. In fact, the people, and he knows it, they're working tirelessly, yet still unable to adequately care for their families. He goes on to say, our veterans are not being welcomed home with the level of support they deserve. Meanwhile, in our nation's capital, our elected leaders are continuing to put ideology over real solutions. I love America, but we all know there's something wrong. And here's another slap at the Republicans. Listen to this. The deficits this country must reconcile are much more than financial. And our inability to solve our own problems is sapping our national spirit. We are better than this. America's history has showed that we have accomplished extraordinary things when we act collectively. Oh my God, that's a communist term. Remember, they used to have collectives in Russia. We have accomplished extraordinary things when we act collectively, with courage, creativity, and generosity of spirit. As we celebrate all that is great about this country, let's come together and amplify our voices. Let's tell our government leaders to put partisanship aside and to speak truthfully about the challenges we face. Let's ask our business leaders to create more job opportunities for the American economy. And as citizens, let's all get more involved. Please don't be a bystander. Understand that we have a shared responsibility in moving our nation's problems, in solving our nation's problems. We can't wait for Washington. At Starbucks, we are increasing our local community service. We're helping finance small business job creation. Our company's far from perfect, and we know we can do far more for America, but we need your help. We need your voice. And then he suggests this. Join the national conversation with #Indivisible. Starting today, I invite you to share your view of America and how we can put citizenship over partisanship. On Instagram, post a photo of the America we all need to see and put #Indivisible. On Twitter, provide a link to an innovative idea and put #Indivisible. Blog about who's making a difference in your community, or on YouTube, share how you made your American dream come true. No matter where you post, if you use the tag Indivisible, we, Starbucks, will do our part to amplify your voice. Now, I don't know what he's suggesting, but he's going to try, I think, to help gather people together. Together, we could set a new tone in America. Anyway, America in 2012 needs to win the election more than either party does. It is a time, whatever our differences, for us to strive and succeed as one nation, indivisible. I think it's a brilliant letter. And I applaud him, even though I never go in his places, because I just think, personally, I don't get it. I mean, I don't get the whole coffee house thing, but and I don't drink coffee. But for a business leader, that I think is a really admirable piece of leadership. And it's not the first time this guy has done it. I've never seen him like on TV or something. I'm sure he's been interviewed. I've never. Anyway, whatever. Blah, 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 blah. Oh! You would think this would be the obit of the day, but it ain't! Mike Greenstein, 91. He's still very much alive. In fact, as a matter of fact, he lives in Queens, New York. As a matter of fact, there's a picture of Mike Greenstein, 91 years old, here, and he's pulling a car with his teeth. Jess just said, shut up. No, serious. Yeah. Honest to Pete. Mike Greenstein, age 91. He says he holds the world record for lifting weights with his teeth. He's lifted 586 pounds. Jeez. I had a friend this weekend who bit into a corn on the cob and lost a tooth. Can't imagine if they tried to lift 586 pounds. No, you've probably seen pictures of Mike Greenstein's father, actually. Remember pictures of like some old strongmen and they're wearing leopard skin, you know, like a one thing? Yeah, that's probably his dad. His dad was considered the strongest man in the world. He was known as the Mighty Atom. Why would they call him the Mighty Atom? A-T-O-M. Anyway, his dad, Joe Greenstein, the Mighty Atom, was a Polish immigrant he was internationally famous because he could bend iron bars and horseshoes with his teeth. Man, they got some teeth in that family. How do you do that? And he could drive spikes with his bare hands. Up until the day he died, he was biting spikes and coins in two and breaking chains with his hands, or simply by putting a chain around his chest and then expanding his chest. The chain would break. So anyway, as kid, he had 10, but one of them was little Mikey. He was the 7th of 10, and he followed in his dad's footsteps, so that by 1940, Mike Greenstein, who's now 91, had gained the nickname the Mighty Atom Jr. So now he's 91. The kid is 91, and he's still able to move a car with his teeth. He has a special leather bite, which he has in his mouth, and then a chain attached to a car, and he can pull it. I guess he faces the car and he pulls backwards, and it does, in fact, still move. He keeps his teeth strong by mixing kosher salt with water and brushing with it every day. His jaws are incredibly strong. He has a girlfriend in a building nearby, and believe it or not, he has a handicap plate on his car. Well, I guess at 91 you can fake it and get one, whatever. His dad used to fasten his long black hair to a rope and pull trucks on stage. Or once at an airport, he held back a plane trying to taxi down the runway. He taught his kid, little Mikey here, how to bend steel bars on the bridge of his nose. Oh, and how to bend coins and nails with his teeth. So there's little Mikey Greenstein of, well, you can't see him, but there he is. Here, Jess, you can see him. 91 years old. And they say the neighbors are so used to him doing this that they don't even come outside if he's pulling a car with his teeth. because I guess he did it for the reporter here, and the neighbors just look bored. Oh, there he goes again. Been there, done that, seen it. No big deal. Oh. Okay. Here's something a little heavy. It's from the Daily Beast. Buzz Bissinger. Is that how he pronounces his name? Bissinger, I think. Anyway, he's a loudmouth and a sports contributor, and I think he really has written a piece that Penn State alums and Paterno lovers will just see read about. But as you know, these emails that have come out over the weekend clearly suggest that Paterno was involved in the Sandusky affair more than he acknowledged. His grand jury testimony says flatly that once he had been told about it by McQueary, that the one move he made, the only move he made, was calling Tim Curley, who was the athletic director, and reporting that to him. And here's a question he was asked in the grand jury testimony. You indicated that your report was made directly to Tim Curley. Do you know of that report being made to anyone else that was a university official? And Paterno said no, because I figured that Tim would handle it appropriately. I have a tremendous amount of confidence in him, and I thought he would look into it. And also, just a few days before his death, in an interview with the Washington Post, Paterno reiterated that had been the only thing he had done was handed over to Curley. And in that interview, he said, so I backed away and turned it over to some other people I thought would have a little more expertise than I did. It didn't work out that way. What these emails show is that, in fact, he was apparently talked to about what to do. And that in that regard, he was in on the Spanier, the president, Curley, the athletic director, and who's the other guy? The chief of, essentially the chief of police for Penn State. Those two are under indictment for perjury. Spanier has never been charged. Gary Schultz is the other one. Those two are under indictment for perjury because of their testimony. Bissinger, whatever his name is, says in this piece that, well, I'll tell you what he says. That Paterno was lucky to have died last January at the age of 85. Otherwise, based on new information, he would be facing possible indictment for perjury. As conceivably now is Penn State University President Graham Spanier, former President Graham Spanier. And then Bissinger goes on to say this about Paterno. It never made sense that he passed, that he never said anything more about it, that he turned it over to Curley. And Bissinger says it never made sense. Paterno ran Penn State. We are Penn State. Forget it. Try I am Penn State. He listened to no one, answered to no one. In 2004, when Spanier and the head of the Board of Trustees went to Paterno's house and said it was time for him to retire, he threw him out. So he goes on in part to say Paterno played a key role in Sandusky's never being reported to authorities. He says, if you read these emails, they pretty convincingly indicate that Paterno was instrumental in the decision of Penn State officials not to report allegations against Sandusky to the Pennsylvania Department of Welfare. Despite his obvious implication to the grand jury that he only talked to Curley once, Paterno talked to the then athletic director a second time in February. Curley then reportedly wrote to Spanier the next day and said, quote, this is what one of the emails said, "After giving it more thought and talking it over with Joe, I am uncomfortable with what we agreed were the next steps." Okay, they had decided amongst themselves, the top three guys, that they were going to report to the Department of Welfare. Then the next email is from Curley saying, "I'm not really comfortable with that anymore since I talked to Joe." And they all backed off. The Department of Welfare was never contacted. And here's Bissinger, and here's what will just curdle people who love Paterno. The emails show that the primary concern, the only concern, was making sure that Jerry was treated kindly, humanely. So he had a little problem with a young boy in the shower, straddling him from behind in what anyone would have construed as forced anal intercourse. Jerry Sandusky wasn't a crisis. A Penn State football team that had gone 5-7 the season before was a crisis. What had happened to a 10-year-old boy wasn't a tragedy. Losing to Toledo at home on national television, that's a tragedy. The most important element of the Jerry Sandusky matter was to keep it mum. So they did. I know it's an ugly thing to trample on the dead, just as ugly as using the cloak of his death to perpetuate the image of a man who we now know beyond all doubt never existed. He wasn't the moral center. He wasn't the avuncular Jopa. He wasn't the man who simply didn't do enough when confronted with a sickening allegation. Add the word liar to his legacy. That's Buzz Bissinger today in the Daily Beast. Pretty strong stuff. Margaret writes, "I lost my front top 3 teeth on vacation." Oh my God! I mean, I once lost my cell phone on vacation. Your top 3? I never think of top 3. I think of top 2. You lost your 2. Geez. They were they were temporary. I swallowed them on the first day of vacation. Well, you must have looked real purty there, Margie. Oh, my God. Okay. Do I have to take a break? Ooh, I completely forgot. Ooh. Okay, quick break.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Vote now. Who will be the chosen one in Pittsburgh City Paper's annual Best of Readers poll and register to win a new iPad? Pittsburgh City Paper, available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
Gustavo and Vella wants to thank all of southwestern Pennsylvania, the USA, and the world for helping to liberate his native country of Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea has suffered 43 years of dictatorship, 43 years of human rights abuses, 43 years of corruption, and 43 years of kleptocracy. Even with $5 billion in oil revenue in 2011, the 700,000 citizens of Equatorial Guinea earn less than $2 per day. A proud Mount Lebanon resident, please help Gustavo and Vella usher in the 21st century by allowing freedom, democracy, and socioeconomic prosperity by the rule of law for the next 43 years and beyond. Email him at presidentandvella@yahoo.com to help free Equatorial Guinea.
Get Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. Go to citypapermobile.com now for Pittsburgh City Paper's brand new mobile app. Get the latest restaurant reviews, event listings, movie times, and of course, Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. citypapermobile.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Hey, how about them Buccos? Almost swept in St. Louis. Love that. They're home starting tomorrow. The Astros. We should be able to knock those guys out. Let's sweep them. Yeah. Anyway, speaking of baseball, let me tell you something about football. So the NFL, this was in the Wall Street Journal, the NFL is freaking out because attendance at its games are way, way down. Well, why would that be? I'll tell you why that would be. You can come up with a number of reasons, right? One, the ticket prices are outrageous. Two, people now have these huge, incredible HD televisions at home that you can totally enjoy the game in the comfort of your own home without having, you can get a hot dog at home for like 16 cents. And a beer for, $1. And why would you go? Why would you go to the stadium? You don't even see it as well at the stadium. You don't get all the information. You don't get the... Why would you go? People are just saying, screw it. Now, obviously, there are some cities where that's not going to ever be an issue. You're still going to be getting, like, I can't imagine the Steelers never not, is that what I want to say? Having a sellout. However, just because they sell them doesn't mean there's anyone sitting in the seats, because we've seen games where, it's a little cold out and people say, screw it, and nobody's in the seats. Now, I must say that in Green Bay, you will never see an empty seat. Ever. Ever. I don't care if it's 50 below. You will never see one. But the NFL is freaked because the attendance is down like close to 5%. That's just going in the wrong direction and has. The top 5 NFL teams on season average game attendance as a percentage of stadium capacity. Guess what? The top is New Orleans. Why would that be? Oh, I know why that would be. They're good. But how come we aren't up there? I don't get that. Anyway, the bottom 5 definitely figures. St. Louis, Buffalo, Washington, Miami, and Cincinnati. But the top 5, neither the Packers or the Steelers are in it. So what the NFL is thinking of doing, actually they are going to do, they're going to try to make the game experience more wondrous so that people will again think, well, I know we can watch it at home, but we ain't going to get the same if we don't go to the stadium. And so they have liberalized restraints on crowd noise. Did you know there were restraints on crowd noise? There were. And now they're saying, forget it. So that the stadiums will now be free, it says, to rile up crowds. Public address announcers will no longer be restrained from inciting a racket when the opposing offense faces a crucial third down. Well, but we do that now. Although I don't think the PA announcer ever says, okay, let's, drown them out. So they're saying you can do that now. I don't know. Does that make a difference? Team owners have passed a resolution that starting this season will allow for local broadcasts of NFL games even when as few as 85% of tickets are sold. So in other words, the blackout rule is being knocked away. In lots of cities, season ticket waiting lists have disappeared. People who could never get a season ticket to a football game can buy them now. Full season tickets are readily available at 20 of the league's 32 teams. So there's only 12 teams where there's a waiting list still. Now, we're one of them. TV ratings for NFL games are so strong. See, the game has become a television game. But without a crowd there, I mean, can you imagine them sort of playing it in a... I don't know. They're scrambling. They're trying to figure out how you do it. How you keep crowds coming. I don't know why since their revenue comes overwhelmingly from television, they should drop the prices of the games, it seems to me. But then I'm not an NFL owner, so what do I know? Ooh, how'd it get that late? Good God. Okay, well, I think we're done. Tomorrow, I guess my sister will be here. Wednesday, I guess no one will be here. And Thursday, Tom Sokolowski will be my guest. So we're missing Potter this week. Maybe he'll stop by on Friday for some fun. I miss him. Gotta have my Potter fix. Okay, guys, stay cool. And when you get really hot, just pretend you're in, I don't know, St. Louis, where it's been like 106 every day. Okay? They'd kill to be in these cool temperatures that we are enjoying. Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.